And as people come, I'll just let them in quietly. And I don't normally do this, but I actually wrote my little intro, Steve, today. So I'm going to read that. Welcome business. And the B's and the P's are hard right now. But welcome business builders. Welcome, Steve. And I'm gonna stay off camera to spare you all. I'm recovering well, and the swelling is starting to go down, but I will say get your affairs in order. Don't push too hard on trees or people or life is my lesson learned. And Steve is my, I don't think I've said this to you, Steve. Steve is my grandpa coach. He coaches Melissa Ford and Ankush Jain. They both helped me immensely. And you all know their work is in our work together. I know that you're taking what has come through Steve to Melissa, to me, to you, and that you are serving your employees, clients, and families with those insights. When I received a copy of Steve's new book, The Very Best of Steve Chandler, from the publisher and my friend Maurice, I just knew I needed to order a case of books to share with all of you, and that I needed to invite others to read the book and invite Steve to join us. So Steve will start us off with a bit of a talk, then we'll open it up for Q&A. Essentially, mini coaching sessions with Steve where the rest of us get to listen as he answers your question. I ask that you keep it to one question so more people get a chance to talk with Steve. And Steve, thank you so much for your gift of time and wisdom. Thanks for writing all these great books and for elevating coaching. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Wayne. Well, let me just talk about what got me here and what created a life in which I could actually have a book called The Best of. I I didn't write books until I was 49. I never believed I could. My early life, right up until the age of 35 or so, was a real disaster. Um, I had all kinds of problems. I had problems with alcohol, which was probably my biggest problem, most life threatening. I had problems with money, problems with relationships, and everything fell apart. I was, and I also developed a belief system over time of being a victim of everything. Um, I had two alcoholic parents, and so I found out that there was a victim group called Children of Alcoholics, and I was really excited to be placed in an official victim category. Um, and I was nothing but negative and pessimistic views about life, and especially about myself. I thought, I don't have the tools. I've never been taught how to make life work. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was just lost. Fortunately for me, the recovery program I went through for alcohol gave me a new life. It woke me up and it showed me that there was more possibility to life than I realized, but mainly more possibility for people changing. And that was the thing that I didn't believe was possible. I thought that people's personalities were stuck, that They got a personality or a permanent identity in their childhood and they were stuck with it. And if they were like me, lazy, cowardly, disorganized, unambitious, and those were my good points, uh, that they were stuck with that. It didn't take long, though, after I got clear, clean, and sober to start exploring the possibility that it didn't have to be that way. And I used to complain that my parents never taught me how to organize my life and be successful. And I was a victim of what I thought was neglect and all of that, but I didn't realize that I really had the capacity to create whatever I wanted. That never dawned on me. I never believed it. And if you told me that, I thought you were just being blue sky, positive thinking. I hated all of that. After a while, I found that I was raising 4 children on my own, full custody. My company was going bankrupt. My wife, the mother of my children, had been institutionalized for a brain disorder. And even though I was clean and sober, I was really lost now. Bankrupt, 4 children to raise. I didn't know where to turn. And I reached out. I had read a book on self-esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And so I reached out to him. I found him in California, and he agreed to do sessions with me. Now, this was so long ago, decades ago, that there wasn't anything called coaching back then. There were business consultants who were specific to a certain business, and there were shrinks, psychiatrists, psychologists, if you needed psychotherapy, which I thought I did. But there wasn't coaching at that time. So I connected with this psychologist whose book I liked on self-esteem. And he had one message, basic message for me. And it was that no one is coming. And I thought, well, that's kind of a gloomy message. And he said, yeah, no one's coming to live your life for you. No one is coming to make you happy. That's not going to happen. And I remember I was in a group with Dr. Branden, and he was telling us all his central psychological message. No one is coming, so therefore, you really do, to be happy, you have to grow up, take charge of your own life, and create what you want. And I thought, well, that's a tall task, given who I am, who I thought I was, permanent personality, only without alcohol now, so I felt a lot better. And he was telling the group, no one is coming. And one of the people in the group raised their hand and they said, Dr. Branden, that's not really true because you came and we're all feeling better from your psychotherapy. We have higher self-esteem. So don't say no one is coming because it's not true. And he said, yes, it is true that I came into your life, but I came to tell you that no one is coming. And everybody sort of got it. It was kind of a Zen thing, but that was a real turning point for me. As years went by, I took care of my bankruptcy. I figured out a way to raise the children. I got hired by a business to do their marketing for them. And I was still fairly lost when I found a coach, a very powerful coach. And he said, listen, you're going to be whoever you create yourself to be. Don't be over making your past overly significant. Don't confuse yourself with your biological self, with your past history. Don't make a big deal out of it, even though the world of psychology wants you to make every little traumatic moment in your childhood super significant and believes that it is shaping you even today. That doesn't have to be true. And I said, well, okay, I don't quite believe that. And he said, well, we'll find out together. And he and I worked on every single negative belief I had and just blew it away, reconnected me to the fact that I could be as creative as an adult as I was as a little boy. And I later, I notice my grandchildren, my grandson, they're born with this energy, enthusiasm, and creativity. They don't judge themselves yet. My little grandson, if you say, hey, let's paint something, he will paint. Or let's play the piano, he'll jump up and play the piano. His mother is cooking and he pulls up a chair, let me cook with you. There's nothing that he doesn't think he can do. And he wants to jump in and do everything because there's no judgment on what do people think of me. What do people think of my drawing? What do people... So he hasn't fallen into that societal neurosis of worrying all the time about other people's approval and not focusing on your own true goals. So I noticed my coach told me you were born creative, everybody was. And if you can get rid of your pessimistic belief system, you can create whatever life you want. And that turned out to be true. And we worked together, and every time I brought a problem into a session with my coach, he never saw it as a problem. He always saw it as a potential project. He saw it as a neutral situation. And he said, and I would describe the problem I had. I'm not making enough money, whatever problem it was that day. And he would say, okay, given this situation you've just described to me, what do you want to create? And he would always ask me, what do you want to create? Well, I have a big debt. I have a debt to the IRS, and they keep coming after me. Well, what would you like to create? And I was confused, like, what do you mean, what do I like to create? I need to deal with this problem. I need to make the problem go away. And he would say, well, you're giving all power to the problem. You're making the problem more powerful than you. And you don't have to do that. So I finally started answering his question. I'd like to create enough income so that this debt is no longer there. He said, okay, great. We now have a project of creating income. Let's look at your possibilities for doing so. So he would, over time, he would show me thought after negative thought that these things in my world, in my business, that I was seeing as terrible problems were actually neutral situations that I was labeling as a problem. And every time I labeled it that way, my mood would go down, my energy would go down, and my heart and my enthusiasm for creating what I needed to create to make the problem irrelevant would go away. But when I could see it as a situation from which I'm going to grow stronger by creating a project that overcomes, bypasses, or makes irrelevant this situation. I began to think in that way. That began to be my new habit of thought that was built over reputation or repetition, not reputation, repetition. And I began to see something in the work with my coach that has later been proven by neuroscience. In the past 10 years, neuroscience has proven that our brains, they call it neuroplasticity, our, our brains can actually be rewired from within, that we can create a kind of software for this biological computer and have formerly buzz-killing, mood-lowering, pessimistic thoughts that felt automatic be changed to a more optimistic approach to everything. And neuroscience has proven that that can happen with the brain. They did studies with prisoners who did meditation and spiritual work, and they did brain scans, and brains completely changed. And so the fact that people can change became my obsession, became what I wanted to write about. It's what this book that Wayne gave you, the whole book, if you even open it at random, it's about the reality of the possibility of change, anything you want to change. And it doesn't have to be from something horrible to something great. It can be from good to great. It can be, I'd like to be better at this. And that entire book is about people's possibility of change. So I began to do work. I had my own company which went bankrupt, and I looked back and I looked at it from optimism. I looked at it from, where is the gift in this? What can I learn from this? And I took those lessons. I was in another company where I had a leader in the company who I thought his leadership was terrible. I mean, he was weak. He was indecisive. He didn't show true leadership, and people in the company wanted it. And he tried to be liked by everybody, and it ended up a disaster. And so I went to my coach and I said, I'm in this corporate training company. I've got the worst leader in the world, and I'm starting to get pessimistic again. And he said, well, where's the gift in this? What can you do? And he said, why don't you create a course based on this guy and teach other leaders how not to be like him. And so I created a course called 6 Mistakes Managers Make and the 6 Solutions to Those Mistakes. And I took that from being in a so-called negative situation, and I learned from the situation. I began to take that course into corporate companies. I began to take it into small business, and I would present the mistakes. And by the way, I can send that course outline to you, Wayne, and have you give it to everyone here if you're interested. But it became very popular, and I began to feel great gratitude for that leader of mine for giving me a course, giving me a vision of how not to lead a team of people, a company. Thank you for showing me that. I never told him that. I don't think he'd take it the right way. But that whole process of what do we have to gain from this, what can we learn from this, became a process that I applied to my own business, the business I was in, and I began to teach it to other people. At the same time, I was starting to teach what I learned from my own life and experience and my coach. there had been a breakthrough in the world of psychology, and they were calling it positive psychology. And what they were basing it on was research done by Dr. Martin Seligman. And previously, his research had been on something called learned helplessness. People learn to be helpless. If you spoil a child, they learn to be helpless. And sometimes he did studies with animals that he would put a dog and food, and he would put a plastic shield between the two with holes in it. So every time the dog went to get the food, they would bump into this plastic shield and couldn't get the food. Then he would remove the shield and they wouldn't go on the other side to the food. He did the same thing with a screen door. The dog went to the screen door, couldn't get out, and opened the door, and the dog would sit there and not get out. And he said, I'm studying learned helplessness. People learn to be helpless. The elephant in a circus, they would train the elephant when it was young with a cable to walk in a circle, and the elephant couldn't get out of the circle. And then they changed the cable into a rope. Now, the elephant could have pulled away from the rope easily, but the elephant stayed in the circle with the rope. And then all they needed was the ringleader to have a stick that looked like the rope, and the elephant would walk around in the circle. And that's learned helplessness. After a while, Dr. Seligman got a little depressed studying learned helplessness because he was seeing it in society. That people who were given too much and didn't have to work for what they made and what they earned, they fell into this learned helplessness. I can't do it. I don't know how. And this, after a while, it dawned on him, he had an insight. Well, if helplessness can be learned like this, why not the opposite of helplessness? Why can't you also learn how powerful you are and things you can do? So he started a research program called Learned Optimism. And he found out that people who were pessimistic, whose thinking habits were pessimistic, like this will never work, or this is bad, or this we're up against this, and I don't know why we go on. The pessimistic thinking. You all know people like that. And he took groups of people and he taught them optimism. Now, not the way optimism is thought of in society, like it's some kind of blue sky, naive, oh, everything's fine, but possibility thinking. The optimistic thought of, let's try something else. I bet something could work. Let's look at this again. Have we tried everything? Let's brainstorm it. Let's keep thinking. That kind of possibility thinking is what he defined as optimism. Where there's a will, there's a way. And he found that people could be taught to think that way and to see things from that perspective. And they learned it like a language of thought. And after a while, it was self-rewarding, that it began to be, life got better for those people. The people who they measured as being optimistic thinkers primarily, after whether they learned it or came in with it, the studies showed they had better relationships, their businesses went better, they had better financial status, everything went better. They even had better health. And so this was a big breakthrough, that optimism could be learned. He went on later to study something called post-traumatic growth. Now, the media and society likes to focus on the negative. If you don't believe that, watch the news. They focus on the negative and the discouraging and the disheartening. But what he found was, and so therefore there's a big deal about post-traumatic stress, that people who've had a traumatic event are now stressed out, and they've got the stress that carries over for the rest of their life. He talked about, and he studied post-traumatic growth, where somebody had a difficult situation, and having overcome that situation, they were now stronger, and they were now wiser, and they were now more confident, not less. And he called it post-traumatic growth. And that could actually be taught to people who'd been through trauma as a different perspective on their trauma. Where's the gift in this? And what he discovered over time created an entire movement called positive psychology. And it was parallel to what I was teaching from my own work, which was just my experience when I talked about owner-victim thinking. There are people in companies who really just thought like victims. This will never work. The company will never pay us enough. Customers aren't appreciative, and total victim thinking. But what he discovered, that's only a habit of thought, and it operates in the brain like a language does. So if you grow up learning English and you go to another country, you will think of answers to questions in English before you try to translate them into your new language. And that's your primary language. But over time, if you spend enough time in that country and interact with people in a different language and you learn it thoroughly, you begin to even think in that language. And I remembered that was true for me when I was in the military. I was in psychological warfare in the military. And I also went to language school where I learned Russian. And Russian was really hard to learn. And they taught us really, really full immersion, 10 hours a day immersed in Russian. And we learned it over time. We took 9 full months of full immersion in Russian. And over time, we were able to think in Russian. I remember the sergeant would come by to wake us up in the morning in the barracks, and we'd start speaking to the sergeant in Russian. And we were dreaming in Russian. And all of a sudden, this new language was in there, operational. Well, Seligman's studies showed that the same thing can happen with optimism, with an optimistic approach. Not blue sky, not naive, but possibility thinking. I bet there's a way. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to look here, look there. I'm going to get help. So that really helped me in corporate America when I went in there. Because when I was doing seminars in helping your people transform from victim thinking, low morale, discouragement, to ownership thinking, like owning the mission of the company as if you owned the company, that was possible to do that and teach people that because it was self-rewarding. They felt better. And that was parallel to the optimism-pessimism research. And when I went into corporations, I found that if I showed, they were very skeptical. You know, this is soft training. We don't need soft training. We need practical, hardcore training on how to produce and perform better. I would show them the Seligman studies, the science behind how pessimistic thinking can be transformed and learned to become optimistic. And that's been proven. And then I would go into my owner-victim from there, and they would listen. And we got great results. That when I took that training in, over time, over 40 Fortune 500 companies took that training, and I wrote a book about it called Reinventing Yourself. And that book is about me being a total victim to over time taking ownership, taking responsibility, moving from being a reactor, just reacting to other people and situations, reacting emotionally with anger, fear, to creating, using the brain a different way, to creating a response to what's going on rather than reacting to it and being discouraged by it. I took that training into over 40 Fortune 500 companies and lots of small businesses. And it got great results. It got results in productivity, it got results in performance, and it helped shape the culture. And I did leadership training and all kinds of things based on that core idea of ownership, optimism. It can be learned. It can be a system of thought as opposed to what everyone in our society believes, and that is it's part of my identity, part of my personality. I'm a pessimist. I found that the people who are pessimists never describe themselves as a pessimist. They always said, I'm a realist. Somebody has to be a realist around here. But it was pessimistic, this will never work kind of thinking, and didn't have to be there. And the good news is people change. I was a guinea pig in the experiment of life of whether people can actually fundamentally, profoundly change who they are being. And then out of changing who they are being, what they are doing naturally changes. So if I'm creative, if I'm focused, I'm taking ownership of my intention for my company, my business, anything I've got going on, my family relations, things will go better. I will feel better. Things are clearer. They have more integrity. There's more energy and there's more enthusiasm for life if I shift my thinking in that direction. With clients, sometimes I get leaders today that I coach who are very bright and good leaders, and they know their business inside out, but they have a few blind spots in how they interact with people, and so they have a very difficult time keeping their own team as motivated as they are. And so I do leadership training in that regard so that leaders learn to lead by agreement versus by expectation and confrontation and things like that, bossing people around and being upset with people's performance, more collaborative type leading. So I promised Wayne that I would ramble for the first half hour and then open it up. So if you guys have questions, you can. Anything you'd like to ask. But that book, by the way, is I pulled everything out of the books I knew had made the biggest difference with people and with companies and small businesses. I pulled everything out of there and compressed it into a book that you could open anywhere. You don't have to start at the beginning. It's not like a mystery novel. You could actually shuffle all the chapters and put it out again, and it wouldn't make any difference. It isn't a linear book. Every single chapter is meant as standalone, useful to people who want to change in some element of their world. That's what that book is. So anybody with a question, I'm happy to answer. And if it's Wayne's, yes, Craig, I see you.
Yeah, I always tend to ask questions first, so I swore I wouldn't this time. And I heard Wayne loud and clear, so mine will be a one question, two-parter. So I, I tend to be looking for opportunities frequently um, in the business and in life when faced with adversity. But there's a direct correlation with how big it is. Most recently, we were having a serious cash flow issue, and um, I obsessed over it. Now we found a good solution. It took a few weeks, and so the magnitude of these things tends to impact my ability to look from opportunity to become sort of, um, pessimistic, like gloom and doom. And the second part is, when I'm optimistic, I can very easily deal with the awfulizers around me, people who are naysayers. But when that, like most recently, the cash crunch, which we've solved, the awfulizers in my life, including my spouse, really, really just sort of exacerbated that. So I just love to get your thoughts on those two things. And sorry, everyone, for being first again.
Oh, that's okay. Craig, can I ask you, what's your question?
Well, my question is specifically, is it typical that, you can be an opportunist and looking for these opportunities that live in adversity, but when the magnitude increases, I sort of melt down. Honestly, I obsess, and I don't obsess positively. Is that normal? And is that typical behavior? And then secondly, how do you deal with in your rewired brain? How do you deal with people in your life that are awfulizers? People that tend to have a problem for every solution.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very normal, very human. Doesn't mean it has to be that way. So, it's very normal that American ambassadors who go to another country don't bother to learn the language of that country. They see it as too big a deal. Now that's normal. That's common, but it's not necessary. So the question becomes: can I practice and get better and train myself? And if I have a coach or advisor, it helps at facing what I'm labeling major, overwhelming adversity with make my obsession or my focus on it. If it's major, if it's threatening my business, I want to obsess. I want to give it positive, dedicated focus. And that's a positive thing. The fact that I'm not going to turn my back on this. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm going to keep my brain on it, and I'm going to create, as you did, over time, create a solution. Now, the question becomes, how am I thinking about it? If I'm thinking about it as major, overwhelming gloom and doom, and that my focus on it is kind of a negative form of obsession. I worry. I have anxiety. That's one form of obsession. But you can move that up little by little with practice to a more positive form of obsession, and it's called dedication, it's called devotion, it's called full focus, it's called commitment to a solution. And all those things are give me a more positive way of fully focusing on this challenge until it is no longer a challenge. So, what's available to me internally as I reprogram how I think about things for my own benefit is to question whether I have to think in catastrophic terms. Do I have to think gloom and doom? Or can I think, yeah, this is major, this is important, this is high priority, I'm really giving it my full attention, I'm asking for help where needed, and I'm engaging it the way a good athlete looks forward to engaging a worthy opponent. Instead of some athletes, the boxers face these people they know they can beat, so they don't train very hard. Now they're fighting for the championship, and it's more exciting for them. And they look forward to it. This is my real challenge. A good team will look forward to playing another good team. They when they go out and play a weak team, they're okay, but it's not as exciting. It's not as fun. So if I can start to convert business into more of the game element, like this is a challenge, we're 2 touchdowns behind and we only have 3 minutes. What are we going to do? There are athletes who rise to that occasion. They've taught themselves over time, I do better when I welcome that occasion and go after it than when I collapse in the face of that. So it's the same thing in business. You don't have to descend into gloom and doom every time a major challenge comes up. That's just a habit. That isn't part of who you are. And people get mixed up. Like when I coach leaders, they say, I'm not this way, I'm that way. As if their habits are hardwired, they're part of their DNA. They have no choice in whether they want to keep that habit or not. So I hope that answers that one question. And then your other one, and I like the way you got 2 questions in under the guise of a single question. That's brilliant. I'm glad you're leading the company. People around me who are doom and gloomers, naysayers, this will never work. Over time, it's my choice on how bothered I'm going to be by that. How much power am I going to let the programming of their brains and get to me? And I can let it really get me down. If I have a spouse who's that way, who says, this coaching thing will never work, why don't you get a real job? Or I can use it one way or another. My first book I put out, I gave a rough copy to the person I was working for in the corporate training company I was in. And he was the boss. He was in charge of all training. And I said, does this look like it could be a book to you? He read it and he said, nah, there's nothing new in there. No one's going to buy it. Everything in that book's already been said. I wouldn't even try to publish it. And I said, okay. And I remember by that time, I'd had a coach teaching me to convert my gloom and doom into inspiration. And I thought, I'm going to show him he's wrong. That book later became a bestseller, international bestseller. It's in 14 languages. And I just was determined, I'm going to take the gloom and doom and use it to motivate myself. And I'm not, to what degree am I going to let the thoughts in someone else's head affect my mood? And it's a matter of becoming awake. I'm letting the thoughts in someone else's head, they're doing the best they can with how they see the world. They're just describing the world they see. They can't have a brain transplant overnight so they become more supportive of me to make me happier. I want to see that that's just the way they see things. I'm not going to let it bring me down. Why should I let the thoughts in somebody else's head bring me down? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's only an old habit of mine, to get discouraged by what someone else says. So for me, I used to take every criticism to heart, and I'd get down. Somebody didn't believe in me, then I didn't believe in myself, or someone criticized me, and I thought, well, I'm a loser. They see it. They see me for what I am. And when I found out I didn't have to think that way, everything changed, and I didn't mind them so much. Here comes, it was kind of like watching Snow White and the seven dwarfs, or the seven, I don't know, dwarf is, you're not supposed to use that word now, is the seven uh, challenged, height challenged, or the seven alternative verticality people. Uh, there's one called Grumpy. Grumpy was amusing. We saw him in the movie and we laughed. Right? It was because we didn't give the movie of Grumpy the power to upset us. Well, I learned I could start seeing people in my life that way, and I had a term for it that would remind me I don't have to take anything personally that's going on with what people say. I don't have to. And it takes practice not to. But I had a term I used whenever I had a family member or a naysayer saying, you'll never work, you'll never succeed, or this will never work. I called it popcorn. And when somebody was out there griping and grumping and they were messing up their lives everywhere they turned because nothing looked good to them. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the target. I was just collateral. I called it popcorn. So when they were out there complaining and whining, and I would have popcorn. Now, if it's somebody in my company, that's different. I want to address that. But it's somebody in my family, and I don't have control over how they see the world. I'll just watch them. I go to family dinner and I watch it like a movie, and I don't take it personally. I'm actually kind of amused, but that took time. It's not like, oh, just know the minute you can do that, you can do that. No, it takes practice because the old habit will keep pulling you back until the new habit through repetition, starts to become primary. That's neuroplasticity. A neural pathway grows in the brain of not taking somebody's remarks personally. And the more I take a breath and watch this person like a movie instead of someone who directly impacts my mood, the more that capacity grows inside you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chad.
Hey, Steve. Hey, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I've been a coach for 24, 25 years. I make a great income. I live the way I want to live. We travel full time. We're in our RV now. Currently we're in Alabama. No jokes, please. It's a great place. And I spend about 18 hours a week coaching. Like I said, make a great income, but I have this habit of discontent. So my pessimism takes the flavor of discontent, right? So I look around my life and I think, gosh, there just must be something better than I have right now, which, as I've already mentioned, is really actually pretty good. I talked to my coach about this. I talked to my therapist about this, and they said, gosh, Chad, what are you bitching about, right? But my question is this: what have you found to be an effective way of refocusing or minimizing discontent and truly appreciating what you have?
Well, from the way you describe it, Chad, the reality is things are pretty good, right? You've got a good life. You've got clients. As you know, if you know the coaching world, most coaches struggle with getting clients. You've got clients. You coach 18, and so that's reality. Now, what does different than the reality is your mind's habit of going to discontent. And that's only a thinking habit. That's nothing permanent. So the way out of having that habit be dominant is to, when you see the discontent arise, it's merely a thought. It's not who you are. It's not reality anymore. It's unreal. It's an unreal habit. And if you can see it like that and sit back and be the witness to that thought and silently challenge it, like, that's not really true that things are gloomy, or that I should have more, or I'm not, there's more I need to add to my life to make me happy. The little by little, that habit will go away. Now, I have to put that on project status. I can't just hope my coach will make it happen, or my therapist will make it happen for me. They can help me see it for what it is. And but I want to put on project status, I'm no longer going to be okay with discontent being my default. That's not going to be okay with me. It's not wrong. 80% of society, if you go on the internet or social media, that's how they roll today. So it's not it's not abnormal, but it is not necessary if you don't want it. You can look into, if you read Learned Optimism, for example, or anything like that, where you say, every morning I'm going to spend 30 minutes reading something that shows me how to change from a worldview of discontent to a worldview gratitude, appreciation. There might be still things I'm concerned about, I want to address, but not in a negative, discontented way. I can just tell you that the transformation from the default of discontent is very possible if you're willing to put it on project status. The example I like to use for this, in a course where I'm there live, I used to do this. I would throw a basketball to someone in the room, and I would ask them to dribble the ball. And they would dribble the ball, and I'd say, okay, throw it back to me. And I would put on my psychic facial expression. I say, I bet you're right-handed. And they'd say, well, yeah, of course, because you're going to bounce it with your dominant arm. Now, I would also say, if Steph Curry were in the room today, and I threw him the ball, and I said, bounce the ball, and he started bouncing it, I would not know whether he was left-handed or right-handed, because over time, he has logged enough bounces with his subdominant arm so that it now is as much of a go-to for dribbling as the other arm. And so anyone in basketball, I remember when I was a kid, I used to dribble only with my right hand, and people would steal the ball from me because they knew he's not going to go the other way. So my coach said, you got to learn to dribble with your left hand. And I said, well, it's harder. So this left hand is discontent. The right hand is discontent. The left hand is optimism, cheerfulness, upbeat. But the left hand is not used to activating. And my coach said, you got to log the bounces. I said, well, how do I learn to bounce the ball with my left hand as easily as the right? He said, the number of bounces you log every day with this left hand, every time you go out to shoot by yourself, every time you can think of it, get it over to the left hand. And when that arm logs enough bounces, you'll be able to go either hand without even thinking about it. And he was right. So that's the same with optimistic, pessimistic. It's the same with content, discontent. Um, it's the same thing. It has to be one bounce at a time. It has to be noticing, oh, I'm going to my dominant arm. I'm going to my habit of discontent. I notice that. That's not where I want to be. Moves the ball over. And then I want to ask myself, okay, wait a second. What's good about this? Like what you told me. You told me what's good about your life. Okay, that's a bounce in the right direction. And so if you put it on project status and not hold it as an ongoing problem, you want to convert internal personality or whatever, habit problems to projects if we want them to change. And they will change.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Buddy.
Hi, Steve. Buddy here.
Hi, buddy.
So we're in the middle of a launch of a healthcare practice. Myself, I'm a chiropractor. I have another chiropractor joining us, physician, two nurse practitioners, health coaches. And it's my vision to create this big, vibrant community health center and do it without the constraints of insurance and all the pitfalls of insurance and the big corporate medical systems that have formed the past decade or two. Kind of bring it back to that small family practice that where we know it's like a big family. And my question, I guess, is similar to Chad's, where I'm not discontent with where I'm at now. Like I feel a ton of gratitude for my family and what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. But Wayne shared a quote of yours from last week, and I might not get it 100% right, but it said something along the lines is that you can pursue or achieve your goals in a fun, relaxed manner. And I guess where that discontent comes in is not even discontent. It's like, it's a burning desire to get where I want to be. And I just have this drive. I want it to be done like tomorrow. So is that serving me? Because that's what's driving me. The ambition's driving me to go for this. Otherwise, I would have been content in my small solo practice that I've been in the past 15 years. So how do you balance that ambition, that drive, that burning desire to get where you want, and still enjoy the process or be more relaxed, I guess I would say.
Well, there are all kinds of ways to be more relaxed. There are meditations that are proven to be effective in helping a person be more relaxed. Your drive and your ambition are powerful. I'd be grateful for that. That's important to get from A to B. It doesn't have to be accommodated by stress. Sometimes it is. It's like I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm going to hold my happiness hostage to getting there. When I get there, I'll relax. Or when I get there, I'll allow myself to be happy. And that's a misunderstanding of self-motivation. It's a misunderstanding to think I need to be hard on myself. I need to criticize myself. I need to be worried and run scared to get from A to B. That's simply a belief that many, many people carry. Like, I don't have time to be happy. I don't have time to do there is a 1-minute meditation that I do before coaching calls that centers me, relaxes me. A lot of people, I recommend it to them and they say, I don't have time for that. And I say, it's 1 minute. Well, I'll try to fit it in. I'll see if it works. If I do it, I'll be falling behind by a minute. So there's that belief that I have that somehow I'm associating urgency, stress, with a beautiful, enthusiastic, dedicated focus on getting from A to B. The joy of the mission. And acknowledging small wins along the way is another way to do that. Bringing everything back to what can I do today? Now, John Wooden was a great leader of a basketball program, UCLA. They won more national championships than any basketball program has ever done. His philosophy of leadership was make each day your masterpiece, and don't get obsessed in a neurotic way with the goal. Have the goal show you where you want to go so you're on the right path. But don't be obsessing with it so much that you can't be happy and free and creative along the way until you get there. So he called it make each day your masterpiece. So a Wednesday afternoon practice at UCLA, he made that as important as the championship game. And the players had to play with the same kind of focus, the same kind of dedication in the practice day, the same kind of attention to detail, as if this day is we're going to make today the best day we've ever played basketball. And we're not going to obsess about the championship game coming up. And then when UCLA got into the championship game, all the sports reporters said, "Why are you guys so loose? You look like you're having fun out there." And they said, "Well, this is just a day like any other. We have learned to have fun playing our best game." And he won championships by pulling that obsession of this. That's the most important game. That's the one we're worried about. We're going to look past Tennessee because we've got Georgia on our schedule. So Nick Saban, I don't want to upset you with this, Chad. Alabama, Tennessee's only Tennessee. What we really have to worry about is when we play Georgia. And oops, oh gosh, we could have prepared a little bit. If we had just been living in the day, we could have beaten them, which is basically what Nick Saban said. We weren't present. We weren't there. So, so your drive, ambition is a positive thing. A lot of people, most people, that's their problem. They don't have that. They don't have a place they want to get to, a place they're passionate about. They don't have a want to. They're just obsessed with the how to. Give me an easy way to succeed. Give me a system. So you've got that. I would treasure that, not make it wrong, but experiment with bringing it back to small wins. What can we accomplish today that would move us toward that? And then I want to celebrate that and celebrate any of the people who participated in having today be a great day. So if your every day is as good as it can be, you'll get to your goal faster than if you spend today thinking only about that goal. And that's, again, like everything else we're talking about here, that takes a little practice. First, it takes awareness that it can be done. And then it takes practice, like, okay, I can dribble with this subdominant arm as well as this, but now I do have to log the bounces. That is how you get there. Action.
Thank you. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I used to do that better. I was better at that before, where I'd pick like one or two small wins and I would win the week.
Yeah,
and
good.
The past 4 months, those things I've chosen have been too big, and I've been not accomplishing them by the end of the week. So I need to go back and break them into smaller parts like I was before.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Ed.
Hi, Steve.
Hi,
Could you share some insights into like how you manage your day and productivity as far as effectiveness and time and energy management?
Yeah, I wrote a whole book about it called Time Warrior. Uh, so to bring it into a short answer, the biggest problem I ever had and people I work with have with time management is saying no. So time management is not a organizational problem. It is a boldness problem. So when I look at my day, I want to look at what's most important, what's going to make us money, what's going to move us forward, what is vital, and what is less important. And then when distractions come up, as they do, a family member calls on the phone, everything, I want to be good at saying a graceful, compassionate no to distraction, to people who want to take my time. So I can focus on, so I want to have my day be, I want to do the most important thing and I want to do it well. And I want to always prioritize what is the most important thing today, and then make a commitment to not let distraction and people asking for my time and me wanting to be pleasing to everybody and me wanting to look like a nice guy. I had a woman who was a client who was running a business, and she said, my problem, I'm overwhelmed, time management, and you got to teach me time management. And I try to do something, and my mother calls me 7 times a day. So this is a grown woman. And I say, your mother calls 7 times a day? Yeah, she calls. And I said, why do you take her calls? You have a business to run. And she said, well, because she's my mother. And I said, that probably has logic to you somehow, but it doesn't. I'm not hearing the logic in that. Yeah, she is your mother, but your mother, allowing your mother to invade your time and space and break your focus over and over throughout the day is harming your business. And so people have competing commitments that they don't know about. So she has this commitment. I'm going to always take my mother's. I'm going to please my mother. I really want my mother to be pleased and okay with me. So anytime she calls, I'll take the call. So that's a commitment she has. And she also has a commitment to run the business as well as she can. Those commitments work against each other. They collide, and they make neither one of those commitments are done well, because when she takes her mother's call, she's not real friendly. There's not a lot of love in that call. It's like, Mom, you just called me an hour ago. What do you want? And so the relationship's not getting better. And what's missing is the ability to say no. And the compassionate no is something that we're not born with that skill. Most children are taught not to say no. When a child first says, when you say, go to your room, no, don't you say no to me. The next time you say no to me, you're going to be on the floor. No is considered something you're not supposed to say. And it's very hard for people who have a secret subconscious commitment to pleasing everybody all the time. It's almost impossible for them to say no. And then they're overwhelmed. Oh, I got this to do. I've got to go to my brother's barbecue Friday afternoon. I've got that. I'm gonna do this. And I told this one customer I'd go to his daughter's softball game and this, and I said yes to this and that, and that is the primary time management issue. Is learning to say a graceful no. I had a coach once who he said, that will change your life faster than any other one thing I know of. And he said, so I'm giving you an assignment to say your no's. Just say the word no, because that a lot of people, that's a word that doesn't come out of their mouth. Do you want to go watch the ballet with me? They can't say no. Oh yeah, sure, the ballet, sure. No, I don't like the ballet. Do you want to watch the Super Bowl with me? No, you can say no to me, but I can't say no to you. I'm going to say no. So saying no takes practice. But after a while, you realize it doesn't damage the relationship. It's merely, I'd like to, but I can't. That would be a great thing to watch, that softball game of yours, if I didn't have another commitment. And my commitment might be to a day of simply reflecting about my business. So I've carved that out. First 2 hours, I'm going to sit alone in my office, do not disturb, and I'm going to think about my business. And when somebody says, hey, can I come in and talk to you? If it's not an emergency, no. I've got something else I'm committed to until noon. We can talk then. People learn to do that. I had a CFO who told me his problem was overwhelm, that people are emailing me all day with questions about money and can we afford this, and I'm answering emails and trying to run the business and trying to do a financial report, and I'm staying up until midnight. And I said, why are you answering every email that comes in? Well, isn't that my job? Well, it's up to you. So he said, well, I didn't even know there was any other way I could do it. And I said, well, how about you let people know that you look at your email at 4 p.m. every day. And if you have a true emergency, you need to see me a different way. You need to text me or something. But if you send me an email, I want you to know I'm going to look at it when I look at the other ones at 4. I'm not going to look at my email until 4. He told the whole company that, and they learned to adjust to it, and they were fine with it. They said, okay, I'm sending this email to Artie, and he'll look at it at 4. Oh, did Artie answer your email? No, he looks at them at 4. Oh, okay. So everybody adjusted to it, and he didn't know he could say no to all these emails coming in. Or another CEO I had couldn't get reports. He was writing a proposal for a big deal. People kept walking in his office because he thought, I have to have an open door policy. That's how I roll. I want everyone in the company to know they can always walk in and talk to me. Okay, that's fine. That's good if it works. But if it is creating overwhelm, you want to think of something else. So he got a new system where he had a do not disturb sign that he stole from a motel. And he told the whole company, when that sign's on the door, I'm working on something that can't be interrupted for the good of the company. And if you have an emergency, write it down, slide it under the door, and I'll look at it. But it's got to be an emergency. When that comes off, you can come in. And they all adjusted to it. So that would be the primary thing. So this coach of mine, he said, I want you to say 200 no's a day. Not to other people yet, because that's stage 2 of our work. Stage 1 is for you to actually have your biological system be okay with saying the word. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I had this little clicker, no. I remember I was in the shower saying my no's. And I had to get to 200. And my kids said, Dad, are you okay? Because they heard the shower going, no, 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 no. Yeah, I'm saying my nose. Okay, Dad. And and that really helped. So that's the basic thing. And then from there, you want to eliminate distraction. There's a great saying that wakes people up called busyness is laziness. What that means is I'm lazy about saying no and creating my day. I'm lazy about that. So I'm always busy. People are always emailing me, texting me, asking me things, and so I'm lazy about being deliberate, being focused, being committed. I'm lazy about learning to do that. Busyness is laziness in business, and it doesn't allow you to do your best work.
Thank you.
I had to learn it the hard way. I'm not saying anything here that I didn't really struggle with. I'm not saying it like, oh, you guys should be like me. I'll be the role model for how to live. That's not it at all. I struggled more actually than most people did with all of these things.
Steve, we have one more
Okay.
from Jack.
All right. Hi, Jack. I'm
can't
not
hear you,
hearing
Jack.
your.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for coming.
You're
My
welcome.
question is around coaching a long-term employee, around, so having somebody on your team for multiple years and seeing that they have the potential to perform at a much higher level. And the challenge is every year they go through a seasonal depression, if you will, or a down cycle. And so that means that they're really performing at maybe 70% of what they're capable of. And I've worked with them on this, and they ultimately believe that this is normal. This is how my mom performed. This is it. And maybe some of me feels like, oh, I should just accept that this is what this person's capable of. And then also as a leader, I feel I can see them performing at a higher level. We've worked on creating an agreement around certain productivity behaviors they can control, and they didn't really do them. And they've always been able to create reasons around, well, this time of season, this happens for me, and this is what I'm capable of.
Okay. Well, that's a belief they have, and that's a habit they have, but that's not inherent in who they are. So where I want to go with it is I want to find in them a good reason to change that. What would benefit this person if that period of 70% went back up to 95? How would it benefit them if it went up there? We used to do a training with sales teams called power goaling. And we found in our corporate training company that when salespeople took the time, when they said their sales goal or their performance goal that could be measured, when they wrote that down, like I want to sell 10 cars this month, or I want to sell 20 cars, or whatever it was, whatever company we were in. Okay, you've got that goal, but your why you want to hit it isn't strong enough. If it were strong enough, you'd hit it. So let's cultivate and develop the why. And what we had them do in the session was start to list all the benefits to you, to your family, to the company of performing at 95 during this, what used to be in your history, it's just past history. It isn't, it can be overcome. And what are the benefits to you for hitting your goal? And they would write down, well, I could pay off this debt, I could do this, I could do that, I'd feel better about myself, I wouldn't be stuck in this thought that I'm just like my mother, that I don't have control over my own activity, I'm not in control of my energy, I'm not in control of my enthusiasm and my performance, I'm a victim of seasonal depression, that those beliefs will dissipate if I hit these goals. And when people start to list what are the benefits to you, no matter how small, of hitting the goal, what are the benefits to other people, what are the benefits to the people around you, what are your benefits to your relationship with your boss, what are the benefits, and when their benefit list got long enough, they'd leave the seminar and they'd start hitting their goals faster. So what I want to work with a person on is how it benefits them, so that it becomes something they want, not something that I want them to do. And that takes great coaching and patience, but that's the thing that I've found with other people that work the best. So you really want to go to a good college, and you're late in turning in your term paper, I would tell my teenage daughter, do you really want to go to college? Would you rather go to this college than that? And if you really want to, why? Well, I'll be there with my friends. Great. And so can you see that getting the term paper in on time is going to benefit you, not me. Like, not me wanting you to get good grades so I can brag to my friends, but it's you. So the more you make it about what's the benefit to your team member for performing at a higher level, the more you focus on that in your conversations, the more likely it is to happen.
How do you, so let's pretend that you get clear on that at the beginning of the year, and then we're 4 months from now and they're starting to slip down again. How do you bring that back to them and coach them through that?
Yeah, the key thing is willingness to address it in a non-judgmental way. So I want to bring them in and say, looks like we're going, that your default mechanism, your habitual way of thinking is going into this seasonal slump again. Let's you and me talk about it. Let's talk about what we talked about at the start of the year, and how can I help you? What can I do to partner with you to help you have this down season be an up season for you, so that you can see that you're not a victim of how your mother used to be. You're not a victim of how you used to be, and that you'll even enjoy this period of time more if you're not believing you're in a slump and all of that. So I want to have a conversation that does not have the other person think there's something wrong with you that has to be fixed. There's potential in you that I can see that you're not seeing. I believe in you, and I know you can do this, and you just don't see it yet. You won't see it until you actually get out there and do it. And what kind of support can I give you? Let's take it one day at a time and really start to perform. Because I believe in you. I like having you on the team. You're as good as it gets when you're rolling at maximum performance. And it's really important you learn to do this during your former down period. for yourself as much as for the company. We can live with 70% of you. That's not the end of the world, but can you live with it? Is it really helping you with your self-esteem? I want to make it all about potential I see. And I want to give him a sense after every meeting that I believe in you, that I see it, I see what you can be. And I know you can do it, and you don't know it yet, but that's how habit works. You don't know yet you could bounce as well with the left hand as you can with the right. It doesn't seem possible. You know, when you try to do it and you haven't done it, that'll never happen. It'll never be like this, ever. And that's just a thought. That's only a thought. Are you open to the possibility that it could happen? That's all you need to be. You don't have to try to trust it or believe it ahead of time. Are you willing to test it? So that's a lot of my coaching are testing, not trusting. Oh, how do I trust that it'll really turn out that I can do it? You don't have to. All you have to be willing to do is to test it and see where it goes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, hey everybody, we're at about the end of time, or the time we have together today. Steve, thank you everybody for bringing your questions. I will, we've been recording this, and I encourage you all actually to watch it again. I think there's great words you can use as you coach your people. Steve, we can find you, we just Google Steve Chandler, we'll find you. Anything you want to share to take us out?
Yeah, I admire your group and you, Wayne. A lot of the groups I work with, they have prior judgment about coaching, optimism, practice, positive thinking, transformation, how changeable people really are if they want to be. They're skeptical about it, and you can see it. They sit back, they're like, yeah, I got to attend this motivational bozo. I said I would be there, so I guess I got to be there. And the whole attitude is get through instead of what can I get from it. And I get a really great feeling from you always, Wayne, and your group as well today, that there's a what can I get from instead of how do I get through. And that's a victim belief, is I have to get through this. I'm trying to get through this, trying to get through that. And then ownership, shift in perspective is what can I get from? What can I take from it? What can I use? What's useful for me? And I get that feeling here. And so I'm grateful to be a part of your program.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Thanks for that. See you soon, everybody. And when I can turn the camera on.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.